four of them come to share. So these three presentations are a rich resource. Jen, you are a rich resource and a true blessing, an undeniable blessing in our network. So I turn it all over to you.
All right, well, thank you. I am going to pull up my presentation here. While I'm doing that, I don't know how long I'm gonna take, so I'm gonna reserve all questions towards the end. And I just wanted to tell you, if we run low on time, I'm happy to also hang out after at 3 o'clock when this is over, if you have any questions or comments or that kind of thing. So anyway, so Mark asked me to share with you what I know about digital evangelism. And I'll be honest, I had to look it up because I hadn't thought about the term before. I had just thought what I was doing was maximizing my social media or digital media presence to create community or to invite people to connect with us and to God. And so I titled this presentation Digital Evangelism 101 because I know that I am not prepared to teach 401. So I'm a lower division class. So, but hopefully you'll learn something new today that maybe you didn't know. But the term made sense to me because evangelism really in its most basic form, right, is sharing the good news. So in whatever we do, whether it is putting a sign in front of our church or having an event or posting a live devotional, we are sharing the good news, or we are pointing to people where they can find Jesus and the good news. And so today I'm going to go through some things that I do and some things that I've seen other people do in ways that you might increase your digital media presence to offer the good news to people in your sphere of influence. I was recently in a cohort with a consultant for churches, and his name was Will Mancini, and he talked at length about something called a crowd cloud. Now, this is a sphere of influence each one of us have, and he said that each one of us have really a minimum of like 200 people in our own crowd. And if you look at your parishioners and their friends, especially in social media, you'll see that this is actually, I think this is actually a really low number. And so how do we maximize that as pastors? And I think our challenge is not just to maximize our digital evangelism, but then to teach our people how they can in turn spread the good news through digital means. And I think it's far easier than we think, but we have to help them understand how to do it. We have to explain to them because it's new to us and it's new to them. So why do we need to be considering the impact of digital evangelism and considering why we need to spend more time learning and growing in this area? So let's look at some statistics. Here are some recent statistics since the pandemic that I gathered from Barna Research. So 6 in 10 Christians, they like watching church online, and they hope that church continues to offer this option down the road, whether we like it or not. The church is changing and how it functions is changing. So we may see less people in our pews on Sunday, but that doesn't mean that they won't be looking for other ways to connect. So that's 62% that are comfortable going online for service. And so we'll lose them if we don't offer options for services online. So when church adults are asked which environment they were most likely to invite friends, the largest number was actually 61%. And they said they were most likely to invite a friend to church in person, which is great. But when I read that statistic, I was kind of like, really? Because my experiences, and I don't know if you've experienced this in your church, but that number feels off to me. So I was only in my church for about 6 months. I was new back to ministry, and I was only there for about 6 months before COVID hit. And during that time, we only had 2 guests in 6 months. Only 2 people were invited to church. One of them was because I extended an invitation, and one of them was because our mayor, who was going around looking at churches and visiting all the churches in the town, heard about our church and came to visit. So that was the only people that invited someone to in-person church in that 6 months. So then the second highest environment that church attenders were likely to invite friends was online, and that number was 38%. But I think that number would increase if people knew more ways they could invite friends to a service. Or oftentimes it's not even, it's not a direct invitation. It's just making that option available to them through, their own social media platform and their cloud crowd. So I couldn't find a statistic for this, but in my own life, I have seen that people are trying churches online first before they want to attend. I think this was the way it was before the pandemic, but I think this has really increased since the pandemic. My in-laws, just share a story with you. My in-laws in Kentucky had sort of felt frustrated at their church for a long time. My father-in-law had gone to church with my mother-in-law, but really didn't connect and was struggling at the church they were at. Well, everyone went online, they found a new church in their area that they liked, and they did so because they started to look at different services online. And at one point, he really enjoyed the services, and the pastor reached out to them. And I'm happy to say that my father-in-law, for the first time, was baptized just a few weeks ago because of this online connection, being able to see this. I will have to say, I will add, no one wore masks in that service, and they walked away with COVID. Although we are praising that he was baptized, I think it could have been done a little more safely because my mother-in-law became very, very sick. And I just say that too, I'm adding a little here extra, this isn't, but I can't imagine what that would have done to him if she had died. So even though it's this beautiful thing, this baptism, we have to be really careful because that could have set him back a long ways. So anyway, so don't think that you're not changing hearts and lives. People are watching and they're listening. So, and then the final statistic before I jump into looking at digital media and our options is that 52% of all Americans consider themselves unchurched. And when asked, 73% of them said they would not consider ever in-person attendance of any kind of religious activity, even if they were invited by a friend. Now that's a really sad statistic, really. But when they were given a list of options, the only option that reached double digits was something that they could watch or join online. And that number was still pretty low, but that was 12%. So 12% of those 52% would actually consider doing something online. So inviting people to participate in church activities online is really, it's super easy. You don't even have to ask in person. You can send a general invite out. People are more likely to respond because they have anonymity. They can wear their PJs to service. They can get a feel for things before they even attend. And I think the great challenge for us is to communicate to people exactly how to do that. So I'm gonna just go through kind of the different mediums I see available to us and see if you can't maybe add some of these to your digital impact at your church. So platforms such as Google, your website presence, social media apps, and even visual content online. So I'd like to unpack this from the eyes of someone who's just decided to look for a church. Maybe they've had a death in the family, or they remember experiencing comfort from a faith community as a kid, or maybe the pastor at a funeral said something and now they've decided they are looking for something, but they're not necessarily sure what. So our fictional friend is Jill Smith, and she sits down at her computer and she types in grief support, and what might just pop up is near me. Google fills in the blanks for you. So she looks up grief support near me. And so Google is a really great tool for you to connect with people. And it's the first and easiest place to make yourself known and to reach people. If you have support groups in your church, are you advertising them? If you have moms groups or MOPS groups, are you advertising them? Even if your ministry is small, Google is the first thing people do when they need something. So then she sees that all the grief groups near her are people she has to maybe pay for their services, like counselors, and maybe there's no church grief support group listed. Chances are good she's looking around, she's looking at articles that she can find on grief. But let's say she decides she might want to check out a church because she figures that's free and maybe it could offer her some relief and maybe some hope. And so she types in churches, and again, it fills it in near me. If she doesn't know to type that, churches near me. So what does Jill find? If someone typed in churches near me and they live a half mile away, does your church come up? So I did this a while back and I realized that Google will show a list of churches, not by size, but by rating and proximity. So you and I with small churches, we actually have an opportunity here. And I asked my people to go on and rate our church. And now when you look for a church near us in Turlock, and you're within maybe a mile or so radius of our church, who's the first to pop up with glowing reviews? That would be us. So I'm happy to say. And actually, like recently, I was looking at a church in the River Conference because a friend of mine moved there, and I typed in this church, and the pictures that came up were actually of like someone's backyard and a fence. So make sure go Google yourself and know what you're portraying and what you're putting out there. And then when you Google and you see that list, then under that list is something else. It's a website and an app called Yelp. And I've recently done this. You can ask people in your church to write reviews again. Only a handful of reviews and even ratings shoots you to the top of that list. So Jill sees your name at the top of both of these lists and is vaguely interested now because she's seen your church listed twice now. There's a statistic out there that marketers throw around that people need to see your name or your image at least 7 times before it registers to them or they want to respond to what they see. So Jill has a few churches she's seeing in her Google search. And so now she's going to probably go to either the website, if you have it there, or possibly Facebook. Now, this might depend on her age, and that's kind of above my pay grade. But since your Google listing has your website, it's easiest for her to just click on that. And so there she goes. She goes to your website. So let's say she goes to your website. Do you have a website, and is it relatively current? Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a web designer, and this is a struggle for me, but I have some ideas and some suggestions for you. There are free web hostings and inexpensive options out there. You could feasibly do a free website through WordPress, and honestly, it's absolutely no cost. You get a free address and link, and you could link it to your Google listing, and people can find your website through that, or even on Yelp. So you could not have like a paid web address. You could actually have a free one. It's not the greatest to do that, but you can attach it to your Google listing. There are free templates, so at least you could put a nice picture and some general information up there about your church to get it out there. There are a few options beyond WordPress that are pretty easy to use and have lots of, you can find YouTube tutorials on all of these, like Wix and Squarespace. And if you're like me and you don't have a lot of web design experience, and maybe you struggle with the amount of time it takes to learn this web design, which is really my challenge, it takes me a long time to do this. Here are a few suggestions. You could look for a young person in your church who has some experience. You could ask a local, maybe Christian high school, if a student might volunteer to make you a website at a low cost, I know Greenville University, which is a Free Methodist college, has a great digital media program. My daughter is in it. And our other FM colleges might as well. And you could email the Dean of Digital Media and see if there's a student who needs maybe a senior project or would be willing to do something for you at a low cost. I'm familiar with a few people who do small business design websites for pretty inexpensive, and you can contact me and I can give you their names. But you are looking at probably $700 to $1,200 to set up a website, and then you'll need to know what to do. Like, you'll need to dabble with it to keep it up to date. when I was moving around a lot and I wasn't pastoring, I always went to a website to see if I wanted to visit a church. Now, here are some things that impressed me and that didn't impress me. So first, simple, I think, is fine. It doesn't need a lot of pages or even a lot of info. I'm not even sure you need a calendar if you are understaffed, but basic info like service times and a few pictures help me get a feel for your church before I go. And I think we can actually give too much info and our website can be too busy. I really think you need to think about what exactly you want them to know, and so they don't get lost in your information. And then people are looking for connections. So if you have a grief group or you have a women's group or whatever groups you have, list those as opportunities. I think you should tell them that you're FM. Some people won't care what denomination you're a part of, but if they do care, like I did, they'll be looking for a denomination that you're connected with. So somewhere in fine print and small on the back page, at least tell them that you're FM. Remember who you're trying to reach by what you're posting. Now, if I went to a site and I was looking for a church and I went to their elders and I looked at their leaders, I personally would not go to a church if all of the elders and all the leaders were white male. So you need to keep in mind who you are trying to reach and what you are trying to portray on your website, and just be careful about that. So just be clear in who you are. Don't act like you're something you're not. Don't post free pictures of churches that are 20,000 people, like it's a big concert, when you don't have that many people, when you're like 50 people. Take nice pictures, crop them, adjust the color and the filter to make them look good, but don't sell something that you're not. And it's hard as small churches, but I still think that you can make it look pleasant without, portraying that you're something that you're not. So then Facebook. So Jill has found you on a Google search and she's gone to your website. She's decided she might be interested. So here's what she does, or I think what she does, because I'm a Gen Xer and I need to know what I'm getting into, and I don't trust people, and I'm pretty skeptical about people. And so now I go to Facebook to see what my options are there. And let's be honest, most people now, before they meet someone, they go look them up on Facebook. So if you don't think people aren't looking you up, especially as a pastor, think again, friends. A woman I met had a daughter, and I wanted my daughter to meet with her this past week, but I didn't know her last name. And my daughter still figured out through connections in Turlock how to find her on Facebook so that she could see what she looked like. And I just have to say, this is the way of the world now. This is what our young people are doing. They want to know what people look like ahead of time, and they go to Facebook to see. So Jill might go look up your church, or she might go see what the pastor looks like, if he or she looks approachable. And she might go to your personal page to see what you post, especially if you don't have like limits on what they can see. Are you strongly political one way or another? And how you approach it, even to know if she feels welcome. Don't think people aren't looking at you before they even consider your church, especially right now in our political climate. Friends, whether we like it or not, Facebook is still the #1 social media app. There are almost 2.5 billion monthly active users on Facebook. The second is YouTube, which comes in at 2 billion. Most adults age 18 to 50 use Facebook. 80% in this range, or this age range, use Facebook, where almost 50% of 13 to 17-year-olds use Facebook. Each year, this number of people who are using social media grows. So Jill looks up your church and she might have a couple of options. She sees you have a page and a group. Now, back when the pandemic hit, we were all confused about whether to do a page or a group or both. And I think most of us have both. I'm not sure, but here's the difference that I see. So I think Jill, who's never been to your church but is interested in knowing more, is going to probably like your page, if anything, and here's why. Again, this is what I think. I can't I don't know, this is my research and stuff. It's not a huge commitment to like something and just click the, she just clicks the thumbs up and she knows at any point she can unlike this page. It's anonymous to some degree. It's kind of like a website to some degree. It's basic information and a sneak peek to who you are as a church. She doesn't get all the internal discussion that might come from the group pay or group on Facebook. You can pay to advertise on this page. So if you have a new series or an event you want to publicize, the page is a great place to do it. You can select demographics and location, and you can choose how much you spend. You can spend $10 and choose a 1 mile radius of your church. And you can even choose if you want women or you want men. It's pretty selective that you can choose. So we post our services. Sorry, I don't know if you can see this on my screen. We post our services here because we feel like we can reach the most people this way. But when you go live, you also have the option of sharing it to the group as well. So they can be watching, so you can have people watching in both places. On the page, you also control the content and can limit the content, and only admins are generally allowed to post information. So then the groups are better for communicating with those inside your church. Groups are more for community building and getting inside information out. And then people in your group can post here. So it's good to have clear boundaries and monitor the postings closely here. You can post your service here, but you don't have the same opportunities to advertise to people or to pay for advertisement. But if you can explain to your people how they can share your service from here, they can post watch parties. They can also share your services as well, even from here. So then the next thing is algorithms. This is something new I'm learning about. Facebook rewards people for posting and advertising in Facebook and keeping your social media here. So I'm going to give you an example to help you understand it. And I'm still like a little fuzzy on it. It's complicated. So I'm going to use James Lackey as my example, social media guru extraordinaire, right? On Monday, he does this wonderful and happy little thing called Meme Mondays. Now, he may have a good reason why he does this, just for the fun of it, maybe, but Facebook likes it because he gets them more visibility. And so what happens is that on Monday, I scroll through those because they are one of my favorite things about Mondays these days. And I like to like or love a handful of those because they're funny. So Facebook rewards both James and I for connecting in this way. And his posts will then dominate my feed the rest of the week. I don't mind hearing from James because I like him and I like his posts. So I continue to look for the memes and like his memes. Now, I wonder if you could think with me how that transfers to us as pastors and as administrators of our pages and our groups. The more we post likable content, the more people will see from us. At least, I think this is how it works. But if someone has invited Jill to go to church and she likes our page and she watches us on Sunday, and then during the week she starts to see our posts, the more she will probably then see our content. So she will have more of us in our news feed. So the more your people share, the more they're going to see our content, the more they're going to share our content. So looking at my own page, I can see that all my postings on my page, the live ones get the most likes. So here are some ideas to give you more traction on Facebook. Invite some people in your church to do maybe pop-up prayer during the week if you have people comfortable with praying and going live. Do maybe a devotional once a week or invite someone in your church to offer a devotional once a week. Post appropriate or funny memes that get traction and get likes and shares like James does. Post verses or quotes and maybe include a brief blog post to go with it, write a little blog post on Facebook. I follow other pastors and I see some things they do that maybe create energy and create, interest in like reposting. So Brian Worth, down in Southern California conference, he posts almost daily, at least he was for a while. I haven't seen it in a while, but maybe he just hasn't been on my feed. I haven't liked him in a while, maybe. He'll post some exciting news, and he always kind of ends it with celebrate. Like that's his thing. So at the end he'll be like, celebrate, like, can I celebrate with me? And that's his thing. And maybe you could do something like that becomes kind of your thing, that people are like, yeah, that's great information. I'm going to share that or like that. I've noticed the Table Church does Testimony Tuesdays sometimes. At the beginning of the pandemic, one of our people is a counselor in the community. And so we had her come on and do some live Facebook sessions to talk about parenting in the pandemic and stress during the pandemic. Look at who is in your congregation and see what they can offer that you might put out on Facebook. You might be surprised at what kind of live content you can even offer. And explain to your people how they can help you advertise your services. They can share your services, or they can even do a watch party. And sometimes they need to be reminded that they can do this. And then online service options. So Jill is beginning to connect with your church through Google searches, through your website, and through Facebook. So now she sees that you offer services. I don't know how you've decided to do your services. You might have a large budget. You can stream from your website. But if you're like us, you're looking for the easiest and cheapest way to get your services out to people. And so most likely you're using Facebook or YouTube. And I'll be honest, I don't know which is better. But I think the best option for the most people is live stream on Facebook, and then maybe even post it later to YouTube for everyone else after. I think YouTube people are your regulars, and they know to go to YouTube to watch your service if they can't watch it live. Where Facebook, you have a better chance of picking up people who weren't necessarily planning on watching maybe that day, but like you rolled across their screen and they're like, oh, I'll just stop and listen. So another option is Zoom, but I honestly don't think this is a great idea. I think Zoom is great for Bible studies and meetings, but if you're hoping for new people to join, I just don't think you're going to get that on Zoom. And I could be wrong, but I think people who are visiting your church want anonymity, especially at the beginning. And so I don't think they will want to get on Zoom and be seen publicly, even if their screen is black and that kind of thing. So we went live a few different ways in the beginning. We did kind of a back porch kind of thing where Jeremy led, my husband led worship, and I preached. And lately we've been going live in our normal service with a small band in our church. So some things to keep in mind when you're going live. Keep it shorter. I try to keep the services to under 50 minutes because I don't think people can focus as well online. Think about your introduction. People may decide to stay or not based on how you start the video. Think about tension in your topic. When I think about the TV show with the best tension out there, I think about Lost. I don't know if you've ever seen Lost. You might not have watched it, but when I would watch Lost, I got to the point where I didn't watch till the end of the show because I knew they would build tension at the end and make me want to know more. And I'd immediately want to start watching the next episode because I was like watching on Netflix. So what is the tension in your message? And one of the best resources out there for preaching that is free, and he talks a lot about tension, is a guy with a website named preachingdonkey.com. I know. That's the funniest thing you hear today. Crazy name, but he says if donkeys can preach, so can you. And he's referencing, I think it's Numbers 22. So if you want to learn more about building in tension to keep people engaged in your sermon, especially online, and staying with you, and giving them a reason to stay with you during the message, check him out. I think I listed it online. He's a great free resource for better preaching too. He puts out a lot of videos. They're very helpful and is a good resource. So Then remind. Post reminders that your service is about to start. I post movie clips, or I post that go with my sermon topic. I post worship songs. I just post reminders, but you just need to remind people, they forget. Show them how. I think you also need to help your people know how to share with their friends and how easy it is. And here is something I put on there. I post from time to time on my church's group page to remind them kind of how they can be sharing with their friends. And then build feedback into your message. Facebook will reward you if you're getting likes and comments. So wherever you can build feedback into your sermon where people are liking the content or answering questions, the more visibility you'll get. I count likes and those hearts as the new amen. So you might want to say during your sermon, give me a thumbs up sign if you're with me. So I know you're with me. Come on, people, like, did what I said, did that hit home? Like, give me a thumbs up. So just start building that into your service so that they're liking your service or loving your service, or even questions that you're asking them to respond to. So then Jill has been to a service or maybe part of a service. And so the big question we are all wondering now is how to get Jill from being an online guest to connecting with us in person. And I think this question will remain, obviously, to some degree until the pandemic is fully over. But one thing we can do right now is this, a digital connect card. Now, there are several options out there for connection cards online, but many of them are actually really expensive. You could do something like Planning Center Online, which includes online connection cards, or even Tidely offers connection cards, but these are paid services and sometimes they can get costly. So I recently figured out how to do one free, and so I'm going to include a link on the PowerPoint where you can go to do this yourself. It's basically through Google Forms. You can create a form with a link that you can post before, during, after, or all three your service. I only started this a few weeks ago, thanks to Mark asking me to do this. So I learned something new in all of this. And I have been really pleased by this response. I wasn't sure people would respond, but I got 6 responses in my first week, and several expressed interest in small group options. And in the sermon, I talked about the opportunity for baptism, and I asked them to respond if they were interested in baptism. And I did get one person who expressed interest in baptism. So I'm pretty pumped about that and excited about that. So I've included this tutorial on how to make your own connection cards, thanks to the Greater New Jersey Conference of the UMC. That's where I got it from. So hopefully someone like Jill connects with the good news of Jesus through one or more of these options that you put out there to digitally, especially during the pandemic. Hopefully, I realize that this is a fictional person, and it won't likely play out like this. But let's just say the perfect person shows up and she's like, follow that. Anyways. They could come in at all different points. Anyways, but hopefully that was helpful. I did have just a few more comments. I have a few other ways for you to connect with people through social media, and I just wanted to share with you these in my closing. And I want to point out a few different apps that are available that might help you think creatively in building community and reaching out to people. So the first app is Meetup. It's called Meetup. And I believe you can join for free, but it's something like $7 a month to post your own groups. But this is an app that allows people to connect with similar interests. So you could start a grief group or a Bible study. And honestly, I have done this in the past and gotten a surprising response from it. I did it when I was in Texas. And I think you'd be surprised at the people who want smaller group connection and are interested in joining a Bible study or that kind of thing. Another app is the Nextdoor app. I haven't been on here very long, but you could join either your neighborhood or the neighborhood maybe where your church is located and connect with people in your community. There are groups on there as well, and I have not utilized those yet, but I do know that it's an option. And I think actually you can choose either in your little neighborhood or outside in the larger neighborhood with that. So finally, then the last app I would recommend is an app called Remind, and it's a free texting app. And I have Aaron Lackey to thank for introducing me to this free service. It was originally created for teachers and schools, but if you look online, they know churches use it as well. I felt a little bit guilty when I saw when I first started, but I saw how widely it was used for churches, and so I'm pretty sure that they know that churches regularly use this app. So I don't think it's limited to just teachers. So when you set it up, you have a link, and you can encourage your people to sign up with this link and then kind of a response code. And you might want to tell them they'll need to choose either parent or teacher. It doesn't really matter what they choose because your text can go out to everyone. And anytime, honestly, anytime I use this app, like for example, if I offer a drive-through communion, if I text before, like a half an hour before, I will always get a better response. If I don't remind people, I won't get a great turnout. So there are texting services out there, but they're costly. I looked into them. And so this is really just a great, if people are willing to sign up for it, it's a great way to text out reminders. And then the last thing I wanted to share with you is your visual identity. I use a few different platforms to help me create visually appealing content on social media. And I've even designed a temporary logo through these platforms. And the first one is an app called WordSwag. It's a $4.99 a month, but you can put any picture you want up there. You can add words to it. They offer free pictures from Unsplash and Pixabay, which are both two great places to get free photos. It's easy to use, and you can design quality stuff right there on your phone. So that's a good one. The other one is a website that you can connect. You can connect either to a website or an app on your phone, and it's something called Canva. You can choose free content, or you can pay, and there is some free content, it's just not very much. You can pay $15 a month to have access to everything. Multiple people can be on one account, so you can share it. They have social media ads, presentations, social media banners, and there are many templates to choose from. I'm posting the most recent designs I did for sermon series and for the logo. I also did this presentation from Canva. It's a lifesaver for anyone who doesn't have a big budget for design. Whew, I wasn't sure how long I was going to go because I feel like even as a pastor, I go longer than I think I'm going to go.
Again, that was so rich and amazing. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and Jen will call on you like a teacher. Or a comment.
Yes, Lori.
I just want, I've been following you from the start, and it's been really neat to see the progression of your presence online. And I've noticed a lot of those little changes and stuff, and just really starting to get my internet presence for Ascend Mountain Church going. A lot of those things are coming into play, and fortunately my son's pretty savvy, so most of what you're talking about are things that he utilizes, and the concept and all that.
Good.
Really
That's
good.
Great. Good. Hey, Sam.
Hey, great stuff. I loved it. I think I'm one of those that need to repent the most because I'm a computer science engineer, but I just don't do any of this stuff. I don't know what it is. I think I got to do a spiritual exorcism because this is like stuff that should be easy to me, but from, the inertia from still to moving, it just takes so much force. And I'm just really thankful for what you gave, Jen. I love it. I'm looking forward to watching it again, right, Superintendent Mark, because you have this on the website, and checking out. I try to take as much notes as I can, but I love it. It just really convicts me, and I love what all the things you're saying. I guess for me, it took so long to move from regular giving to digital giving, but after I've done it, I was like, what an idiot. You should have been first on this. You knew it first, but so yeah, great job.
Yeah.
Thank you for motivating me.
Thank you. Thank you. Benga, did you have a Benga?
Yeah, I was just going to comment that it's powerful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there are a lot of information there. I will actually go back to and review them as the superintendent put them online. But
Great.
offline, I want to ask, I will be asking you a question about that, your drive-through communion, because we are
Okay.
planning one for this Sunday. It's our first.
Okay. Great.
I would like to just kind of.
Yeah, I'll stay after. I'm happy to stay on at 3 if you guys want to stay. Any questions or anything I said jogged anything. So, did you have a question, Mark?
Well, I wanted to comment on just how brilliant it is that you took us through not, here's how you should be looking at it as a church leader, but how does somebody out there look at your church? What do they see? What are they thinking? And that is so critical for digital evangelism. If all we're thinking about doing is doing what's comfortable for the people in our church, then we will cease to be salt and light. That was brilliant. I have a question. You mentioned a number of free things, which are really good, and a few things that you have to pay for. What's your perspective on you get what you pay for and the value of investing financially in social media, web stuff, all of that, as opposed to trying to just find the cheapest option?
I honestly, if you have free options like I like this, the Google Forms, like, I mean, I think if you have money, use it. I think if you have money, I think you should use it in your website. Is where I think you should use it, because I think everything else you can do kind of free. And you know, if you grow, you have more opportunities to do it. But there's so many free options. You know, even that Remind, like, why pay $50 a month? You know, you just tell your people, like, look, it's a teacher's app, so you just have to like sign up as a parent or student, but you know, it's free, you know. So but you have to get them to sign up for it, like so but then they've said they want that information. So I don't know, I just don't think that you should pay for a whole lot. I think there's just a lot out there that's free, but if you are going to put your presence out there and pay money for anything, I would do it your website.
I'm sure there are many other questions. I'm not sure where all the feedback is coming from, but I'm sure there are many other questions that we have. And Jen, 1, you're willing to stay on a little bit longer. And 2, she's a strong leader in our network and you can call her anytime. But I have to say, that was truly rich content.
Superintendent, I have just a curious.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see your picture, so I didn't see you had your hand. George, go for it.
I don't know how to do it. Hopefully this one will work.
Perfect.
Hi.
Wow, you're so handsome.
Just, you know, a little curious about, you know, all of these things that you can go in and you can, but then there's also a negative side of it, and it's just to me. From your experience, you know, just like Yelp, you know, like restaurants, you go in there, you put good comments, and then there's always somebody there that'll be like, I wish I didn't go there in the first place. Have you ever encountered any kind of those kind of reactions in your, not only in your page, but maybe the Free Methodist or anything? And how can we approach it in a way that will come out, not that we're uppity or anything like that, but we're trying to, you know, so have you encountered any kind of those, there's people out there that's going to be like, what is this, you know?
I don't I haven't necessarily encountered it. I know like at the larger Free Methodist Church, people have made nasty comments and stuff. You can pull those down. You have control over that. You can pull those down. But then like on like Google or Yelp, there's ways that you can connect with those people and try to remedy that situation. And honestly, if it gets too nasty, like you could probably pull down your business and restart it later. You know, like, I don't know, there's probably ways around it. I want to hope that people aren't looking for ways to just be nasty, you know, but I don't know. I'm new to Yelp. And so we'll see if that becomes a nasty place. So
what kind of impact? Because if I can go in there and say good things about the church and the conference, and somebody else can go in there and do the same, well, not so good. So what's the I'm hoping I'm choosing the right words here. So how can somebody differentiate, like you said, somebody that's just trying to, you know, get into, how can they approach it and say, okay, maybe this is who they are, or maybe this is who they aren't, if they don't know us.
yeah.
And I think I can say, you know, I think I'm trying to say is, you know, I guess the negative side of it. And please, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to, you know, to think, because if we can easily say good things, somebody else can easily say, trying to, you know, to tear the thing down. But you know, again, you know, I understand, but I guess so.
Yelp gives you a way to connect with those people if they give a negative review. So I can feasibly call them or contact them and say, hey, you know, you had a bad experience with us. Can I meet with you, or can I talk with you over the phone? And you can connect with them and maybe have an opportunity for outreach as well. You know, so hopefully that wouldn't be the case, but that is, you can do that with, I think, even Google. So
thank you.
Benga, did you have a question?
No, another response to him too is that you can respond to people's criticism online, so that people reading the criticism can also read your response.
Yeah.
A lot of people make mistake, and when you correct them that, oh, you know, this is the situation, is wrong thing, and people can see the truth.
Yeah.
Very good, friends. Well, look, we're going to move on just a little bit. However, I want to again just reaffirm, Jen, that was a really fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
And would you be able to share those? Would you be able to share those slides so I could, or your presentation and whatever?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Then I'll post that when I post the video version as well.
Okay.
But just a quick piggyback then also on George's question, and probably the number one fear, I don't know if it's number one fear if you haven't done it, but once you've entered into the sphere of social media, it will quickly become your number one fear, because it's reality, is people get snarky online, and people who don't know you or don't know your church will take something you say out of context and say crazy, stupid, nasty stuff. So that is the wild west of social media. And do be aware that you can control who posts things on your page. You can take things down. On as Jen said, if you're looking at Yelp or other reviews, you can respond to those. But I wouldn't focus too much on that, because most people who are going to say something have said something because they've had contact with your church. In fact, I don't know, except maybe and I do know a few, but they're very few and far between, where somebody gives a negative review or makes a snarky remark that hasn't had any contact. And most people that have had contact with the church are going to reflect what they experience in the church. So I have seen churches evaluated with Google and Yelp and Facebook. You can rate a church on Facebook as well. And some of them are like, wow, best thing since, forever. And others are like, well, I went and I wasn't too excited about the worship service or whatever. People are honest. So the best thing to do is to be as good and as loving and as helpful as you can be. And that will likely increase people saying things like, you're a good and loving and wonderful church. Anyways, just want to toss that out there. Was that a hand, Sam, or?
Yeah, I love that question because really, George, I think people are more interested in your response because they see that everywhere. But the differentiation is like, how do you respond to negativity? And is that winsome to them? Because everybody gives a good face. That's
Amen.
what social media is all about. Um, and um, and they know that you're going to fill the comment section with churchgoers. They know that. So
Mhm.
everybody understands that. But the ones who are really winning the battle in social media, YouTube, are those whose response are just graceful and intelligent. And I think, what it's like you said, it's a wild, wild west, but that's where we are. If we're going to go digital evangelism, then it is a wild, wild west. And if we're going to bring the gospel there, then how do we become victorious? How do we conquer the wild, wild west? I think one of the key points is how do we respond? You're going to get this, but that tells more about your church and you than it does about them because they know this everywhere they go. So I guess I kind of see it as an opportunity. Just
Amen.
prepare for it and be ready for it. And then because people get to see all the replies and they make a judgment, this person's just, a negative person. You can tell. So
Thank you, Brother Sam. Malo late.